Hello Mustang fans, and welcome to another edition of the Cory Sauter Show here at Studio One, Marshall Cable Access, and at SMSUmustangs.com. I'm Kelly Loft, Athletic Communications Director at Southwest Minnesota State University, and again we talk SMSU football as we look back at last week's game versus Northern State, the season opener for SMSU. We'll talk to the head coach, Cory Sauter, and we'll also preview this week's game, the home opener versus the University of Mary. It's Egg Bowl at the stadium, and that'll be coming up later on in the show as well. But we begin this week's show looking back at the Northern State game, and with us is the head coach, Cory Sauter. Mustangs open the season with a non-conference loss to Northern State, 30-17. And coach, there are a lot of positives, there are a lot of ups and downs throughout the entire ball game, and we'll talk about those and take a look at the highlights here later on in the show. But your overall thoughts now, it's been a few days since you played the Wolves. You've got to watch some film and talk to your staff and players, and obviously disappointed with the loss after a very good fall camp, and after basically having a few months off here since spring ball. But your thoughts of how that game went on Thursday.
Well, it's never fun starting the season off with a loss, and I thought our kids prepared well, as you mentioned, in the fall. Going into game week, I think we had a very solid week of preparation. Thought our kids were ready to play, but as we talked about earlier, our kids, we do have some younger kids, and with that there are going to be some mistakes that are going to be made. So that's the tough part. Always on a loss, it's not very fun, and the fact that you've got to review it over and over again with your players. We watch it as a staff, we watch it with the players, we do our coaches show, so there's a constant reminder anytime you do lose a ball game what that's about. And our biggest thing now is just to bounce back as quickly as possible. We actually practiced yesterday and get our guys moving around a little bit more, and so hopefully get that game behind us and actually move forward.
Again, the Mustangs lost 30-17, and at times both offense and defense had some bright spots, and special teams did as well. After the first drive offensively, the Mustangs were forced to punt, but you get a 3-and-out by your defense, or they forced a punt, and you went down, had a nice drive, and unfortunately, and probably maybe the drive of the game, you get stopped down by the goal line. You went for it on 4th and goal from about the 2-yard line, didn't get it, but I suppose that was a big difference in the game, and that was kind of a microcosm of the contest. A really good drive, moved the ball, ran it, threw it very well, but took a costly penalty, and then got stuffed for a 2-yard gain, or tried to get a 2-yard gain and only picked up 1 yard.
Right, and we were capable of moving the football most of the evening. Yardage wasn't an issue. Turnovers, as well as just red zone production, were our biggest factors going into this ball game. And we went for it on 4th down. That was my call. I probably would have done the same thing. I wanted to set the tone early in the ball game and get an early score. And they give them credit. They stuffed us on the basically the 1-yard line or the half-yard line, and thoughts were if we didn't get it, we'd put them on their own half-yard line and put them in a tough situation to start the ball game.
Yeah, and it did. They did go 3-and-out and were forced to punt. But the differences in the game, so many close plays. Is the punt they had after that 3-and-out inside their own 2-yard line. It was a line drive. If it hits one of their guys, you've got great position at about the 10-yard line, but it bounces and goes 56 yards or whatever for a long punt. So it really flipped the field around, but you did come down and score. It got a field goal in the next possession. But talk about the thoughts, the positives in that ball game. Your offensive line and offense, as you mentioned, put up over 400 yards of total offense, and for having just one senior on the starting offense for the entire all 11 players, the guys really did a nice job moving the football.
They did, and our offensive line came ready to play. Very physical group. Our interior 3 guys are guys that first time playing together, and I thought they got after it up front. You'll see some clips here later on when we get into the video part of it, but really getting really good movement up front. We didn't have any negative yardage plays, which is great to see. Our only negative yardage plays were the snaps that were errant, and so we're definitely getting some pretty good push up front. Made it very easy for our backs to make a cut and get positive yardage almost on every play. So that was probably our biggest thing that we can hang our hat on, is just the play of our offensive line in general.
Yeah, and also your receivers, a very young group as well. A lot of new players. Your junior college transfers made some plays, and also your true freshmen had 3 receptions combined by the true freshmen. And it's not easy stepping in and playing your first game as a true freshman.
Right, and on the road, and those guys, fit in pretty nicely. We rotated those guys to give our starters a break within some of those longer drives, and they did a nice job. I mean, we didn't notice them for very much, so that's a good thing. They weren't jumping off sides, they weren't lining up improperly, and so those guys came up with a couple nice catches, and we expect that they'll continue to develop and grow, and we'll definitely need them as we push into the season.
Well, again, the Mustangs lose the ball game 30-17. It was a non-conference game versus the Wolves. SMSU trailed 14-3, came back, got a touchdown late in the second quarter to make it 14-10, and after a field goal by Northern, under a minute to go, you decided to go try to get some points, and it nearly worked off. You got inside the red zone again and just missed a field goal, but you got to show your 2-minute offense as well, and that clicked there in the first half as well, and another positive sign. And another positive, you made a field goal, first field goal we made in over a year. Had some long kickoff returns by Warren Matthews, and special teams played pretty well, and we also had a block punt, and we'll see that highlight later. But the third facet of the game played very well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the one that you are most concerned about going into your first game, because you have 55 guys that are traveling, all of which are involved in some shape or form of special teams, and to get 6 different special teams units to play well and get that organized, a lot of credit goes to Coach Kerr and our staff getting our players ready that way. We're looking for big impact plays. I think Coach Kerr mentioned 4. We want 4 big impact plays in the ball game, and we accomplished that goal. We had a nice return. We had a block. So that was probably our best unit of our 3 in our ball game, and I'm excited because we get everybody involved. It doesn't matter if you're a starter or backup. All those guys, we're going to put everybody out there because it is a third of the game, and we don't want to just talk about it. We want to actually go out and do it, and so I'm excited about that phase of our team. I think that's going to be one of our most improved units as we go into the season.
Well, talk about the defensive side of the football, Coach, and the defense did force some punts in the contest, and gave up a couple of big plays, and also one of the scores was after an interception deep in Mustang territory. But you had some guys play very well. You knew Mark Schomeyer, had a good season as a sophomore last year. He played very well. Was named the team defensive player of the game, and you talked about Lawson Starr during fall camp, and he stepped up at the cornerback position, led the team in tackles, and made some big hits.
Mm-hmm. Well, defensively, they were put in a tough situation early in the game. They came out in some different formations, different personnel groups than we anticipated seeing, and so they had to kind of catch their breath and really regroup on the sideline between series. Headsets went out middle in the game, and a couple things that you don't anticipate happening, but I think they bounced back. The toughest thing is we gave up some big plays, and that's something that we're definitely going to have to look at and work on. It's one thing to have a scoring drive, but when you have a 3 or 4 play scoring drive, that tends to take some of the air out of your own offense, and so that's going to be our biggest thing is try to force the other team's offense to take snaps, because at some point usually offenses are going to make a mistake and create a long yardage situation. When that happens, the odds go to the defense, and so that'll be our biggest thing. We just need to make sure we keep everything in front of us, create plays when they're there to be made, but it's a great learning experience for all of our players on that side of the football.
And one thing you saw throughout the contest of both offense and defense, and we've talked about this every year, and it's about how there's certain plays that just maybe it doesn't seem like it shows up in the stat book, but the first drive of the game, Northern sitting at a 2nd and 14, and then they pick up a 11-yard gain to make it a manageable 3rd down. But plays like that are the differences in making a team punt, or vice versa, the bad snaps that put you at a 3rd and long, or we had a 4th and 18 situation and then picked up 16 yards on that play. But if you don't have a snap that go over the head, or a one player miss a play and it gets a sack, and those things just add up. And that's why I think if the Mustangs obviously fixed some of those things, it could have been a victory, no question about that.
Well, that's the part that makes it tough to swallow when you lose, is because when you look at the film, they're all very easy, correctable mistakes that we made. And when we look at the third play of the game, we had a one-back power play. We had a snap that wasn't handled by our quarterback. And when you look at the film, I mean, there is an absolute hole as wide as from me to you inside that we would have probably gained 5 yards, but we ended up losing, 5 yards or whatever the case may it was. And so I think there's those types of things that we just have to be able to handle. We're down in the red zone, having a delay a game. Those things change things once you're inside that 10-yard line, and your play calling changes, and just really your overall outlook within that series. And so those are things that we just have to correct in a hurry, because they're very easy things to handle. Yeah,
well, some of the stats from the ball game: SMSU over 400 yards of offense. The leading rusher for SMSU, Warren Matthews, 94 yards on 12 carries. Gannon Moore, a nice game as well, 70 yards rushing on 8 carries. And Mustang quarterback Tyler Prashon making his second career start, 18 of 34, 208 yards, rushed for a touchdown, also threw for one in the ball game, but did have 2 interceptions in the third quarter. And also had another quarterback play coach, and that was Charlie Kern. Tyler Prashon missed a series with a slight injury, and Charlie Kern had to come in, and a big spot for him in a close ball game as a redshirt freshman. And you've been in that situation at high school, college, and professional level, and it's a whole other game when you step on and you're facing against 11 guys from another team.
Right. Well, I think his heartbeat doubled in repetitions as he got the call, and that's pretty normal. That's natural. But he got loosened up on the sideline. He went in there. Guys rallied around him. We were able to move the football somewhat, and fortunately we didn't get the outcome we wanted. But it was good to just get him in the game, just getting some meaningful reps. Not in the fourth quarter when the game's determined. Obviously the game was still in balance, and so it was nice to see him just go in there and get some reps with our first team.
Well, you are watching the Cory Sauter Show here at Marshall Cable Access, Studio 1, and SMSUmustangs.com. Mustangs losing to Northern State 30-17. We've talked about the ball game so far and broke it down. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from last week's game versus the Wolves. Again, played in Aberdeen, South Dakota, a non-conference game. And we start off here with the big rush here by Warren Matthews this in the first quarter.
Well, here we're in a one-back set. We end up running inside zone. Warren's such a good back as far as making a guy miss. We're getting pretty good blocks on the outside. Take a look at our right tackle here, Brian Rodas, number 64. Gets a really nice block here, puts his guy down, caves him down inside, and really allows Warren to get to the outside and let his speed take over.
And Rodas, an honorable mention all-conference pick last year. Now we go to the second quarter and a big run by Gannon Moore.
Here Gannon, same type of play, an inside zone. Get a very, very nice hole inside. And Gannon's a tough guy to bring down. He usually is going to get you a couple extra yards. In this case here, he gets a bunch of yards. But you just look at the holes inside there. I mean, you can literally drive a car through some of these things. It was nice to see our run game, get off on a great start.
And to keep the football, they tried to strip it, and always from the backside, kind of scary. Here's Warren Matthews picking up a big run as well. This is a 27-yarder in the second quarter.
Pretty amazing. Again, he's hurdling guys. Take a look at Brandon Puffer here, our center. Gets a very nice block, pushes his guy, caves that hole inside. You see Warren Matthews on the outside with his speed. Very tough guy to take out.
And here's the touchdown run by Tyler Prashon to make the score 14-10.
We've got a design quarterback run. We get tremendous blocks across the board, offensive line, our tight end, receivers. Very well designed. Our guys executed extremely well. But down in the red zone, we have to be able to throw, we have to be able to run, and this is just one of those plays that is designed to hopefully take care of all those defenders and really leave your quarterback one-on-one with the safety.
Talked about one of the true freshmen that played in the game, Jordan Cross, and here's one of his 2 catches.
Yep, here's his first catch, and big play. The safeties were starting to come down, trying to stop the run. We were having some pretty good success running the ball. Notice the great pocket here. I mean, there's no one in Tyler's face. He's able to step up and make a very nice throw.
We continue on now defensively, and Lawson Star, big hit here, read the option and just popped the runner for a loss of 1.
Right, you can see him knifing inside that receiver. You see Bradle coming off the edge, forcing the pitch, and then Lawson's there to clean it up. Again, very nice play by our defense.
10 tackles for Star, and then nice game for Mark Schollmeyer. Had 3 tackles and 3 tackles for Lawson. Here's one of them.
Yep, very emotional player, guy that's very active, tough to block with one guy. You can see him here on the right side, splitting 2 defenders and making the big play in the backfield.
We talked about special teams as we continue on, and a big return here by Warren Matthews. This started I think it was in the 3rd quarter, and most people thought he probably was going to take a knee, and I think that's how Northern felt as well, but Warren came out and
about 5 yards deep in the end zone, and everyone kind of is wondering what's going to happen, but here he jumps over one defender, another defender. I think their kicker was pretty good. He was putting them, into the end zone, well into the end zone. I think Warren had enough of that and decided, I'm going to, take one out here and see what happens. And that's not always a bad thing when you got a guy that has that type of ability. But just look at just his ability to make a guys miss, jump over guys. Most guys don't have enough speed after they jump over somebody. Warren definitely does.
Here's a tackle here by Phil Brado, moving from fullback to linebacker this spring and fall, and with a stop there for the Mustangs. Phil with 5 tackles.
Right, and he's been waiting to hit somebody all camp long, and here's one of his opportunities. He's a very physical back and loves to hit guys.
There's a big sack for the Mustangs. This was late in the 2nd quarter. Thought it might put the Wolves out of field goal range. They did make a field goal after this, but a big sack by Mark Schollmeyer.
All right, big play in the ball game. Here, Mark gets essentially double teamed from the start, and you see their line is sliding to him. He ends up splitting those 2 defenders and ends up making the sack.
And continue on now with some more defense here in this 2nd quarter.
You can see him right here in the middle, right on the hash, coming downhill. Big physical linebacker, played defensive end last year. We made the switch and put him in an inside linebacker position. But he's had a very good camp, and it showed here in our first ball game being able to make these type of tackles.
J.J. Brodowitz finishing with 4 tackles in the contest. We continue on now. Big special teams play, block punt by Tyler Tondrum coming from the bottom side.
Yep, you see him coming off the edge. Wasn't even close. I mean, he could have pretty much picked it right off that leg without even diving for it. But he has tremendous speed. You can see him here on the right side of your screen. Gets a great get off and is right there, and it'd been nice to get a nice bounce for us to scoop and score that, but again, very nice play by our special teams.
Mustangs went down and scored, a trail by just 7, and here's this tackle by Randy Erickson on the quarterback.
Right, and you can just see his effort. Initially he gets blocked, and he keeps working and keeps working, works down the line of scrimmage. You can see him here working across, trying to get, he's getting held a little bit. Guys are trying to cut him, but he still pursues to the football, and that's what we preach each and every day in practice.
Another defensive play by senior John Kersbergen.
Yep, tackle for loss, and as we mentioned all along, he's a guy that's usually near the football, makes a lot of plays, lots of tackles, doesn't miss a ton of them, and we expect that out of Kersbergen.
Following that block punt by the Mustangs, they come down and score and make it a 7-point game, and fade pass here at Pashon, top of your screen to Anthony Dean.
Yep, we have a back shoulder fade, throwing it behind him by design. Really was a double call. We had a run play, and we checked to this play. And we do that quite a bit in our offense, having 2 plays in our huddle and trying to take the best look play that we have with that huddle call.
And Boone with the 5 catches in the contest, including that touchdown, and we continue on now. A couple of plays on defense, and Bradle again with a big hit.
right? And Bradle, again, is a guy that loves to hit, and he's going to be getting his nose in there quite often. And other guys are forcing the ball back into him, and that's what allowed him to get the big play.
And Ben Peterson, a tackle for loss, and this is his tackle in the contest. He had a total of 3 in the game.
Right.
Over 92.
Good to see him running the football. Again, negative yardage plays are important, and the tough part about the ball game was just the fact that we trailed basically the entire game. And whenever you're behind, that changes things. We like to set the tempo, set the tone, and it's nice to be able to play with a lead or play within a score. And when you're down by 13 points, that changes things, just philosophy-wise. Clock becomes an issue, and when you looked at our first half, and we're very successful running the football. It'd been nice to have been able to stay in that type of mode, really, for the entire ball game. And with us having that, being down by 13, it made it a little bit harder for us to continue that.
Well, you saw in the highlights a lot of big plays by the Mustangs on both sides of the football and on special teams, so lots of positive things to build off as the Mustangs have their home opener this Saturday against the University of Mary at 5 o'clock at the Regional Event Center. It's also Egg Bowl, so a very festive weekend in store for Mustang football and the surrounding areas and the Marshall community to come on out to the stadium on Saturday night. And we'll talk about University of Mary here shortly, Coach, before we wrap up this show. But talk about this past weekend, Labor Day weekend, a long time now to prep for University of Mary, and they're in the same boat as well. They played on Thursday night against Chadron State and picked up a victory. But what are some of the things that you told the guys now after that game and your meetings that you've had and now practices as well?
Well, we told them yesterday, one of the biggest things, this is going to be a big game for us. It is our home opener. It is Egg Bowl. There's going to be a nice crowd at the game. Those are all important things that I think our players like, but just reminded them that it is our next football game, and that's why it's important. You only get 11 games. A tenth of our season is going to be played on Saturday, and so what a great way to bounce back from a loss is to get a big home victory, and a team that we beat last year. Very tough, hard-fought game. They have a lot of talented ball players. They've got a running back that's extremely talented, a transfer from UND, and so we've got our hands full, and I think our kids are up for the challenge. We've got to bounce back. We were able to watch the film the day after the ball game to just review it, get it behind us, and move forward. And so on Sunday, we ended up going out and practicing in helmets and really just get our kids moving around and really thinking about our next opponent and get the other one behind us. And
of course, a lot of guys got to play their first collegiate action in that ball game against Northern State. I believe it was around almost 20 guys or first-year players or transfers and got a chance to play it, and obviously that's going to be a great experience for the Mustangs as well. But as you mentioned, I think it's just you look at University of Mary, but it's probably just taking care of yourself, and you look at some of the plays and things we've talked about. Just doing the things that you practice and doing those things properly, really going to make a big difference. Because as we mentioned earlier in the show, a bad snap instead of 2nd and 5, it's 3rd and 11, and it just changes the whole complexion. And the same on the defense as well, just eliminating those big plays. Yeah,
we try to keep things very, very simple for our players, knowing that we've got some younger guys that are going to have to play for us, and we always want to think about us, not so much the opponent, but we want to take care of us, making sure that we understand what our assignments are, what's expected of us, whether it's special teams, whether it's offense or defense. We want to keep the game very simple for our guys so that they can just play and let their natural ability take over. Inexperience, there is no magical formula to take care of that. You got to go out and play. And so we're going to have to go through some of those learning curve part of it. But all in all, I think the effort was there. There was never a doubt in our sideline, as far as do we have the ability to come back and win. I think that wasn't an issue. But it's all those little things that are going to kill you in the end if you don't take care of them right now. And so that's what our focus is going to be on going into week 2. I'm excited. I think our players are up, and it took me a while to bounce back from that game, just because we had high expectations. We still have high expectations going into this season, and so we're going to have to strap it up and bounce back with a nice performance on Saturday.
To wrap up the week versus Northern State, again, the team offensive player of the week was Warren Matthews. Mark Schulmeyer was the defensive player of the week for SMSU, and Tyler Tondren was the special teams player of the week. And on our last segment here, Coach, let's talk about this weekend's game again. The University of Mary, we've touched on them briefly. They did win their opening game, a thriller against Chadron State, the first time they've ever beaten Chadron State and since they moved to Division II, and they are a team that, as you mentioned, last year we did beat, but it was a very close ball game, needed a goal line stand to do that, and they're a team that improved. They beat Winona State last year on the road late in the year, and they're a team that is very solid. They've got a quarterback now making his second year as a starter, and Craig Bagnall, and as you mentioned, the transfer running back from University of North Dakota who led them in rushing, I believe, last year, the last few years, and transferred in as a senior to play at running back. So let's talk about University of Mary and the things that they bring to the table, a traditionally very strong defensive program.
Yeah, I really think their defense is one of the better ones in our conference. They're well coached. They have very strong physical players that can move extremely well. When you look at their front seven, those guys are about as good as anybody. They got all their linebackers about 230 pounds that can move and run and hit. And in the secondary, I think on their two-deep roster, I think they have about 8 of their 11 players that are seniors this year. And so they definitely have a lot of experience across the board. Their nose tackle graduated from last year, but they replace him with another big body, a 300-pound nose that we're going to have to handle and have him accounted for. So I think very solid. Defensively, they're going to try to force you to make turnovers, create turnovers. So we're going to have to be very careful protecting the football in this ball game. Their offense is different than it was last year. Last year they had a lot of the two-back and some of the split-back looks, where this year they're going to some more of the one-back and more of a traditional pro-style offense. And they've had pretty good success with that, obviously in week one. Special teams could be the deciding factor if we can make some plays there. As you saw, our first game had some big plays. We need to continue that. Our players have to get excited about being a part of that unit and not just, going through the motions. We need guys to make plays there, and that's going to be really our biggest ally going into this ball game is making sure that that's going to be solid again this week.
And of course, it is the conference opener. Mustangs 0-0 in conference play, and the Mustangs excited to get it home. Just 5 home games this year for the Mustangs, and this is the first one. 5 o'clock kickoff at the Regional Event Center as the Mustangs take on the University of Mary at the stadium. And Egg Bowl should be a festive day, so come on out and get the tailgating starting early and watch the kickoff. And the Mustangs take on University of Mary, 5 o'clock on Saturday, and the Regional Event Center. For the head coach, Cory Sauter, I'm Kelly Loft. Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Cory Sauter Show. For all your Mustang information, go to SMSUmustangs.com to keep up with SMSU and all Mustang athletics on the World Wide Web. Until next week, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Go Mustangs.